Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Tilted Lawyer Podcast Daily, where this morning we are going to be discussing what is going on with the Madeline Soto case after Stephan Sterns, the stepfather, the boyfriend of Madeline's mother, has been charged with 60 counts of various acts of criminal malfeasance. We're going to discuss what's going on with him. But more importantly, I think that the question needs to be asked whether or not her mother is involved. You're going to want to stick around. Let's just get started. Whatever you might be going through and wherever you might be, this is Omar Serrato with the Tilted Lawyer Podcast. I'm here to take your mind off of things. Yes, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not giving you legal advice. We're going to sit and talk like people, as these are the candid thoughts of one practicing attorney, and it's after hours. So have a seat, feel free to have a drink, and join me. Let's get started. All right, so Madeline Soto, this is a case that I have not been able to ignore. Many of you have flooded the comments with requests that I take a look at this case and share my thoughts. And it's a developing story, so therefore my thoughts are developing on it. And as of right now, although I'm fairly certain that Stephan Sterns is the person that is ultimately going to be charged with her demise, my question more importantly stems with whether or not Madeline's mom had any role in this. Because there's been a number of odd interviews that she's given in other pieces of information, and it's unclear at this point what to make of it. I'll say this, that I know that there's a lot of people clamoring and saying that she gave this interview and was like giving this weird smirk as there was like this parrot or some kind of a bird in the background, it sounded like, when she was giving an interview to television media regarding the disappearance of her daughter. Some have suggested that that points to knowledge that she knew that her daughter wasn't coming back, her callousness towards the missing nature of her daughter, and various other things. I have not been so quick to pass judgment on her because it's unclear to me whether or not she's involved at all. I just have no idea. I don't know enough about the case, and the case is still developing. And when you're at this stage where we don't even have a murder charge yet, here's what we have. 8 counts of sexual battery of a child under 12, and this is as it relates to Stephan Sterns. 5 counts of sexual battery with a child aged 12 to 18. 7 counts of lewd and lascivious molestation. 40 counts of unlawful possession of materials depicting sexual performance by a child, 10 or more. And there was a 36-page arrest affidavit that detailed the various atrocities that the cops found on this gentleman's cell phone. He tried to wipe the data from his phone. He tried to do a full-on factory reset. Matter of fact, they started to explore where Madeline might have gone. And those of you familiar with the story, for those of you that are not familiar, their story was, well, I don't know what happened. We dropped her off at around 8:30 in the morning at this church, which is near her school, and she got out, and then that's the last we've ever seen of her. And then next thing you know, they found out that Madeline had left her cell phone at the house. They went through the cell phone. There was this mysterious writing on the cell phone that said, hey, on the date of my 13th birthday, I shall disappear into the woods. And the question, I guess, is whether or not that was a bit of evidence that was manufactured by somebody, Stephan Sterns or somebody else. I don't know. But it was just this weird, I don't know if it was a journal entry or social media post or whatnot, but it was just, it appeared, or it was designed to make it appear as if Madeline had written it, which is, when I turn 13, I'm just going to go disappear into the woods, which is not really, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in 24, given that this isn't the 1920s, and that's not, it's much less of a thing than it used to be, say, even going back to the 70s, in the 80s. I mean, children don't just write things like that. But one thing, it has become abundantly clear, is that from about the age of 8 years old up until recently, Madeline has endured some of the worst acts of child molestation that I've ever heard. I mean, it's as bad as it gets, as you can imagine. And there's this article that came out in Fox 35 Orlando on March 12th. And, you know, they go into detailing some of the details of the arrest affidavit. And what they say is the 36-page affidavit obtained by Fox 35 details all 60 counts of what Stearns is accused of. But Fox 35 is choosing not to release the details due to their graphic nature. The document does not name a victim, but does include a date range of how long Stearns has allegedly been in possession of graphic materials, or when the alleged abuse started. June 19th, 2019. That range tops out on February 26, 2024, the day that Madeline Soto was last seen. And while it remains unclear who the victims are, if one of them is Madeline Soto, she would have been 8 years old when the alleged crimes began. The affidavit said Stearns was in a position of familial or custodial authority when he allegedly committed some of the sexual batteries. It also remains unclear exactly how many images Stearns was allegedly in possession of, but each count says he was in possession of 10 or more images, which is the standard for those counts. That means he could have been in possession of at least 400 images of any form of child pornography. I'm guessing because there's a escalator written into that statute. According to the affidavit, the content of at least one image contains one or more of the following: child who was younger than the age of 5, sadomasochistic abuse involving a child, sexual battery involving a child, sexual bestiality involving a child, or any movie involving a child, regardless of length and regardless of whether the movie contains sound. Stearns will be arraigned on the charges on April 2nd, where I'm guessing his public defender is going to... actually, I believe that he's already been arraigned. I think they moved up the arraignment date, and I want to say that I heard his attorney basically waive his appearance and says, yes, he understands the charges against him. We don't need to read them. I'm waiving his appearance. We're going to enter a plea of not guilty. It's pretty common practice to do that, and I believe that's already happened. The article goes on to say that we appreciate the efforts of our partners in the state attorney's office in assisting with seeking justice for Madeline. With this being a complex case with many facets, our work is not done, and we are continuing our investigation into the timeline leading up to Madeline's death. He remains in custody at the Osceola County Jail after he was arrested February 28th on unrelated charges after he voluntarily turned his phone over to law enforcement during the search. Voluntarily, but then just before that, like hours before, he did a full-on factory reset, and he says, oh, it was an accident. I don't know what I did. It happened. The night of his arrest, the Orange County Sheriff's Office named him the prime suspect in Madeline Soto's disappearance. He gave this bumbling, I believe it was on the same day that his mom did an interview with the media regarding Madeline's disappearance. He gave this rambling, incoherent, poor excuse of a attempt to show some despair over the disappearance of young Madeline. He's trying to make himself cry. If you go back and you watch that interview, I mean, his eyes were almost completely dry, not even a glimmer of tears, clearly putting it on. It wasn't as robotic as, say, Christopher Watts when he was being interviewed, because that guy was just like a deer in headlights. This guy was doing his best to act the part, and he did a pretty poor job from what I'm gathering from the public perception. So there's very little doubt as to his involvement. The kicker was when they inevitably found Madeline, there was video of her alive. Well, not alive. In the car. There's an article on Court TV. Let's go through it together. Investigators announced on Friday night that they had located the body of missing 13-year-old Madeline Soto. Madeline had last been seen on the morning of February 26 when her mother's boyfriend, Stephan Sterns, was supposed to drop her off at school. He told police that he dropped her off at a few blocks away at 8:30 a.m. when Madeline's mother went to school at 4:30, she learned that her daughter never arrived at school. And then her mom went on to say that, oh, I heard that there was a video next to a local church that showed her just kind of hanging out in a parking lot. Her mom had never seen that video, but somebody had told her that it existed. So she told the police that it existed. She told the media that it existed. So what to make of that? To me, that's easily verifiable information. And so I don't think if she had it doesn't make sense to me. I'll just put it this way. It doesn't make sense to me if there was a plan or a scheme to make Madeline disappear, that she would throw out a bit of false surveillance footage to throw people off the scent because they would have discovered it was false within 5 minutes. And so it leads me to believe that there was no involvement just on the strength of that. I understand that there is some bizarre mannerisms from her interviews, but my pushback to that is that I've been doing this over 10 years now. And when I first became an attorney, I was very heavily reliant on people's outward manifestations of emotion because, it's the most obvious marker of what a person is feeling and how people will perceive their guilt or innocence. But what I've come to learn, especially when it comes to traumatic situations, is that very seldom when somebody is not guilty of anything do they manifest the expected emotions that you would expect of somebody going through the trauma of missing their child or having gone through the trauma of experiencing something terrible. Like they say, the cops always make a big deal about, we were talking to him, but he didn't appear to be emotionally distraught, or he wasn't doing this or that, which is, and they know this, but people manifest emotions differently. There are some people that in the face of trauma like that just completely shut down their emotions, and so they appear robotic. There's no extremes. They stay almost exactly in the middle. And some of you behavioral psychologists out there can maybe speak to that. But I have interviewed, cross-examined victims of sexual abuse in my career who were children, and as they were speaking, they were adults, and their affect as they were speaking was very robotic. When they would come in, they would introduce themselves, and they would, get to the first portion of the exam, and they would be very emotion-full, and they would emote. They would, even have, some bubbliness in their personality. Then as soon as we started talking about the events, all of that just whoosh, flatline. And it's not like they were talking like they were sad. It's just they lacked emotional affect. Some try to discard the feelings of trauma through comedy. Some try to do it through other methods. I'm just saying that I am not convinced, based on the mannerisms of Madeline's mom during that interview, that she had anything to do with this disappearance. I'm not writing out that possibility. I'm just saying it deserves a deeper look. And perhaps a presumption that she's not involved, because some of the things that she said so far to me does not make sense. If she was, and she's trying to throw people off the scent, it's just, But again, we're very early in all of these charges, so we'll see where it goes. But let's continue with this article. When Madeline's mother went to school at 4:30, she learned that her daughter never arrived at school. At Orange County Sheriff John Mina said that their investigation revealed that Madeline had left her phone at home that day. Madeline's mom said that was, she has ADHD, that she does that a lot. It wasn't anything remarkable to her. During their investigation, detectives said they found disturbing images on Stearns' phone. The images were described as criminal and sexual in nature, and detectives said the crimes were committed at the family's home. So when they went through these images, they noticed, the bed sheets. There were certain patterns on the furniture, on the clothing, on the underwear. It was very clearly videos and pictures that were taken and produced while in the Soto family home. And they were the most graphic of graphic sexual images that you could possibly imagine. Imagine what you would consider the worst and double it. That's pretty much what these images were. It was really bad. And the article goes on to say, investigators said on Friday that they have also on surveillance video showing Stearns throwing items into a dumpster including Madeline's backpack and laptop. Surveillance video also shows Stearns with Madeline in his car, and deputies said that they believe that she was no longer alive in that video, in the surveillance. That would have been around 8:19 a.m., the morning that she was supposed to have been dropped off at school. And so it appears, although he hasn't been charged, and I'm wondering why he hasn't been charged, my guess is just they're still accumulating evidence and there's no need to rush because they got him on these 60 counts of other stuff and he's not getting out. He's not bondable on those charges. And so he's going to be there for a while. So they're going to take their time with this case and make sure they got him dead to rights before they bring charges, which makes a lot of sense. And it often happens when they got other stuff to arrest him on. And so that's not remarkable to me. Just it's an explanation. In the arrest affidavit obtained by WFTV, police said that Stearns did a factory reset on his phone on February 26, the day that she goes missing. A review of the phone's data revealed attempts to delete evidence. Stearns was charged on February 29th, a few days later, with sexual battery and possession of child sexual abuse, and among all the other things we just named. Stephan had an opportunity tonight to come clean with detectives and help lead them to information about Maddie's disappearance. Mina said at a news conference that Madeline, who goes by Maddie, had a message on her phone saying that she intended to go live in the woods when she turns 13 on February 22nd. Detectives said they had more than 100 people searching and had focused much of their attention on wooded areas for that reason. And so, whether or not mom is involved at all or deserves any culpability in any of this, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. I don't think that we have enough with what has come out so far, but we'll see. For our purposes for today, or not for today, but for Friday, I've been really wanting to cover the Scott Peterson case, the murder case from way back in 2003. I remember that case when it just happened. I have been convinced of his guilt, since everything happened. I mean, there has been documentaries about 10 years ago, I want to say, that try to point to his innocence. I think his attorney was Mark Garagos, and he came in and shared some of his opinions about the unreliability of witnesses. But I've wanted to cover it because the Innocence Project has decided to take up his case and are actively trying to get him out of jail, where he's been for the last 21 years. And so I may put that off again if I get to it at all, because so many of you are interested in what's going on with Madeline, and this is fresh news, and this seems to be what everybody wants to listen to. Maybe I'll throw up a poll later on, but let me know in the comments what you want me to cover next. Do you want me to cover this, do a deep dive on the Madeline case, and we'll go through all of the evidence, the arrest affidavit, what is out there, the interviews, the interrogation videos, everything that's out there on Madeline, and we can just have a discussion about it, about what direction we think this case is headed, and I'll share my thoughts after we've done the deep dive. Or should we just pour into Scott Peterson and go in that direction? It's really up to you. So we're going to be recording on Friday morning, and Ileana is going to be joining us again. And I think so many of you had a positive reaction to my assistant, Melissa. She might be joining in on us as a third participant on our regular long form podcast. That's all I really have for you this afternoon. Well, it's the morning. It's almost 11 o'clock. For those of you that were waiting for the show to air yesterday, I offer my sincerest apologies. You should know that when I produce these Tilted Lawyer daily shows, it is just me producing them. And Dominic, he does the long form stuff. And I've been handling the daily stuff so far, and I screwed it up. I corrupted the file somehow and I couldn't recover it. And so I just said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to do it again tomorrow morning. So here I am. I'm doing this again tomorrow morning. My apologies. Hopefully that'll never happen again. But in addition to this morning's video, we're also going to be publishing, Dominic's going to be releasing the last 2 episodes of Family Law After Dark. And so you guys have that to look forward to. And then tomorrow I will be back as normal for our regular daily video. And then on Friday, of course, we're going to be recording the long form podcast. Also, it has been confirmed at 6 p.m. Eastern time, or pardon me, 9 p.m. Eastern time, I am going to be doing a live stream on the Watts Obsession channel to talk about all things Christopher Watts. And I'm really looking forward to doing that. And for you Zawaki followers, it appears that I'll also be on that same day doing a live stream with him at around 2 p.m. Pacific time. Me and him are just working out some of the final details of how that's going to go. But it looks like I'm doing that as well. So I got 2 live streams on Friday. I got the long form podcast coming up. It's going to be a lot of talking by me on that day, but I look forward to it. And with all that said, I look forward to seeing you guys. Maybe I'll start doing this daily show as a live because it makes the editing so much easier. I really don't do a lot of editing myself. I just kind of just rattle off. I give you a good 20 to 30 minutes, uninterrupted radio show style, and it is what it is. But so maybe that'll work on the live stream. Would you guys prefer this show as a live stream, or should I just keep this, as the video? Just let me know your thoughts. Other than that, I will see you guys tomorrow. Love you. Bye.